Hi and welcome to this week's Retvlog, in fact the last one of 2017 of course. And what I thought I'd go over here is looking at gearing again in Antorus. Now at the start of Antorus we had a little look at Thete and Trinkets being the main ones. It's ones I'm going to look at here, but it's a case of re-looking at them. So what you generally do, or what I generally do and certainly advise, is think about the things that can likely drop and then sim it and see what sort of upgrade it is for you. You sort of have to do it, not necessarily for every item level you can possibly get, because you know Titan Fortune, but I usually do it in like brackets. So Trinkets initially didn't look very good in Antorus, and still don't really for me. It depends on what trinkets you've got. I mean, it could be argued, it would be strongly argued, that the trinkets I have, neither of which the ones I'm using at the moment come from Antorus, are actually pretty good. If you're going to talk about trinkets that you can get from outside of raids, the ones I have are quite good. I've got a 910 Arcano Crystal, and I've got a 960 Memento of Angerboda. Always remember, if you've got a Memento of Angerboda yourself and you sim it, that in reality it'll probably do a little bit better than it sims. And the reason for that is because of all the other things that can proc it. Other people dying can also proc it, so, you know. And there's quite a lot of fights in Antorus, unlike in Tomb, I would say, where you can get away with people dying and you'll still kill the boss. You know, the DPS checks, there are some DPS checks, but especially early on, even in Mythic, they don't seem as severe. You can get away with quite a lot of people dying on Garothi Worldbreaker, fair few people dying on dogs, I would say. Antor and High Command, you can get away with a few people dying. You don't want too many people dying, especially if it's not too early, because of course you need to do your turn in the pods. You know, but you can have people die. It's not one of those things of a few people die, or we're not going to have the DPS to make the check. Which of course means double whammy, retribution proc, as well as if you've got Memento, then you're going to get proc from that as well. But anyway, so what I did is I've simmed myself recently this week in terms of what I have. I have an average item level in the stuff I'm using in raids of 957 item level, round about there. So what I did, I'm in the position now where initially what I was simming for were mostly heroic trinkets. Now I'm simming them at Mythic baseline, so 960. That ties in quite nicely this week, because if you happen to have Khazgaroth's Courage, the Pantheon trinket, that would now be a 960. There's no Titan Forge with that one, of course. You start off at 940 and you upgrade it for every week that you've killed Argus. After the first kill of Argus, you get a Pantheon's Blessing trinket, which stacks up, which is just as well in my case, because I still haven't got the Pantheon trinket. So I've got 4 of those Pantheon's Blessings in my bank, which means you could upgrade it to 960 at the moment. And then Amon'Thal's Vision, if you're lucky enough to get that, then that's of course going to be item level 1000. There's no say about that one either. Someone in my stream last night linked a screenshot that they had actually got that, and just so that everyone else can feel extra pleased for them, they don't even raid. They were saying they were wondering if they should maybe go back to doing to raiding. Obviously they did a raid to get it, but a normal pull. So anyway, I went down the list of simming these trinkets. Remember, 960 base item level. Which ones are looking good for me and which ones aren't? Remember, for yourself, you're going to have to sim them. Personally, I would suggest raid bots for that. It's a nice, easy way to do that. But I would say make sure you use the Simulation Craft add-on. That way you can get the profile imported into raid bots. The only other way to import your profile is via the Armory. The Armory does not provide information on your relics. Isn't that fantastic? So don't use that. Use the Simulation Craft add-on. So Forge Fiend's Fabricator is not simming as an upgrade for me. In fact, it would be a downgrade. This is replacing the Memento, by the way, in each case here. Gorshalak's Legacy is round about the same, and it's actually a very slight downgrade. You've got to remember, these, I only did one set of sims for these, and I did it for the old patchwork 5-minute job. Obviously, for some fights where there's going to be some AoE, which is a fair few fights, then some of these may be a little bit better. Seeping Scourgewing, of course, is the exception to this. This is pure single target. You know, I saw someone saying yesterday, you know, which is the really good trinket from Antorus for us, Seeping Scourgewing. do bear in mind that it is pure single target. Now, usually when you say a trinket is single target, what you're usually saying is it only does its damage on one target, so it's not that good in an AoE situation. The classic example was this was the countermeasure trinket that we wanted at the start of Legion. That's not the case here. You actively lose DPS by using it in AoE because there's two portions of damage it does. One is the sort of damage it does everywhere. The other is an extra lot of damage, about a third of its damage, that it does only if there are no enemies in range. So don't use this if there's going to be... Or, I mean, if there's going to be ads up every now and then and you kill them immediately, all right, don't worry too much about that. But if there's going to be ads up quite a lot of the time, for example, Antoran High Command, then don't be using this trinket. Obviously, there is a range for this, so you don't have to worry about using it on the dogs, for example, on Mythic. Don't use it on the dogs on normal or heroic if you're in the habit of stacking them up, as we are now. But, yeah. But CP Scourge Wing, of course, at 960, this is an upgrade for me. It's a clear upgrade. I actually have a 945 one, which is round about the same as my Memento. And because of that, because of, you know, deaths and stuff like that, I still just use my Memento. Also, there is a danger with Seeping Scourge Wing, especially at the moment, because I just don't change anything. The way things are set up at the moment, I don't change my talents, really. I don't change my gear from fight to fight, because it's all set up. It's as good with ads as it is for single target in terms of what I have available to me. There is a danger if I use Seeping Scourge Wing on a pure single target fight that I forget to change the trinket on the next fight. So, yeah. But generally speaking, as soon as I get a 960, then I would use that, of course, for pure single target fights. The irony being that there wouldn't be that many left once you got that one, unless you got a Titan Forge one from like Heroic or something. Shadow Singed Fang is not that bad, but again, just doesn't quite beat out my Memento. It's round about the same again. But Shadow Singed Fang is not a bad one because it drops off an early boss. Drops off the second boss. So to get that on Mythic, you know, the 960 version, if you're into Mythic raiding, then that's not too bad at all to get. Khazgaroth's Courage, of course, the Pantheon trinket for us, is not great in terms of, even at 960 item level, it's not that great. Of course, the benefit of the Khazgaroth's Courage, this sim I've done without the extra proc you get from other people having, you know, the extra proc you get from other people having the similar trinkets in the raid, or enough of them having, you know, enough different ones. That will, of course, tip it over the edge. Of course, at the moment, if I had access to Khazgaroth's Courage, would I equip it? Yes, I would. In raids, because it is going to be better, because I've not simmed that extra proc. But the other thing is, each week it's going to go up another 5 item levels, so it only needs another week. You can see from here it's going to sneak itself ahead. So it is one to use right now if you've got access to it, especially for raids, and especially if there are enough other people in that raid that have them as well. And then finally, Amalthul's Vision is, of course, the BIS one. There's no argument about that. It's 1,000 item level. That straight away is going to make it very good. Also, just the straight up stats. Remember, Retribution Paladins, we get a lot of benefit from all of the secondary stats. We're not like one of those classes that really needs a particular stat and the other ones are basically poison. All of them are really, really strong. And your people are often saying, you know, which one's prioritized. You know, this tier, we generally say, if we had to, Haste Mastery. Haste Mastery gear is what we ideally want. When we're choosing which bosses to coin, we generally choose to coin the Haste Mastery ones. But there's not a massive amount in it. For example, I recently, in fact this week on Mythic A&R, coined, and I got the braces, the Haste Mastery braces. Fantastic. 960. I already had some 960 braces that weren't Haste Mastery, that were also 960. The Haste Mastery ones were a slight upgrade for me, but it was only a slight upgrade. There's no point in, you know, overstating it. All the secondary stats are pretty good. If one starts to get behind, then it's going to start simming as if it's got quite a lot of value. So don't be, you know, don't go gung-ho, oh, we must get lots of Haste and Mastery. Haste Mastery is nice. The Haste up to a certain point, you don't really want much more than about 30%. 31 and a little bit percent. And that, remember that when people talk about that 31.25%, what they're generally talking about is for using Whisper of the Nathrazim. Now that brings me on to my next point. So Whisper of the Nathrazim, the cloak, at the moment is a no-go for me because I am using 6-piece bonus. That is 4 set tier 20, 2 set tier 21. So then the question has to be asked, at what point do we stop doing that? Because, you know, some people have already got to that point now. It depends on what item level your tier 20 stuff was. Some people might be getting round about that. I am getting round about that. So what I did a couple of quick sims. So I simmed myself, and then I simmed myself if I had... It didn't work for heroic. It was a downgrade for getting 4-piece with heroic pieces. But for mythic pieces. So I already have a 945, so heroic, tier 21 helm. And I have a 955 tier 21 cloak. So what I said is, okay, let's say I get another 2 bits of tier 21, but they need to be mythic, because I tried it heroic, didn't work. So I went for the gloves. That would actually be a 5 item level downgrade on my tier 20 gloves, because they're 950, but they're not good stats. So 9, behave yourself, it'd be a 10 item levels upgrade. The heroic was a downgrade, but it didn't end up being an upgrade. Sorry, 960 mythic gloves. Now, I'm not killing the boss that drops that yet, but hopefully we'll get to that soon. That is our next target, King Garoth. So let's say I got 960 tier gloves, so I could coin that boss, maybe get those. And let's say I got the 960 tier legs off Iminar, which is the best item, because that's the haste mastery piece. In that case, that would be an upgrade, and it'd be worthwhile me switching from tier 24 set to tier 21 4 set. At which point, of course, I lose the ability to generate 3 Holy Power with the Blade of Justice. So I'm going to have to get into a different mode there. I need to cut out the idea that, because I instinctively know at the moment, if I use Blade of Justice, I know I can spend immediately after it. So if I need to, because either, let's say there's a load of ads that need to die super quickly, I want to get my Divine Storms out quickly as possible, then that's, you know, I know that I can do a Divine Storm. Whereas now, with the tier 21 4 set, if I did that, not necessarily. Of course, we also have to bear in mind that as soon as we use Judgment, then we could sort of do the same thing with it, because that's going to cost 1 Holy Power fewer. But it's getting into a different mindset, for which you want to be doing a lot of practice on the training dummy to get you to readjust your muscle memory, so to speak. So then I thought to myself, okay, in general, people do ask this question. They ask, why do so many Rets use the legendary Soul of the High Lord and Belt as opposed to Soul and Cloak, which sims better? And the reason is purely to do with those tier set bonuses. So then what I said to myself, okay, let's say I've gone to 4 set tier 21. The main reason why we stuck with 4 set tier 20 is the 4 set tier 20 is, in terms of the set bonus, better. But item level, you know, it's not so much better that with enough item level you can't use the tier 21. So at that point you're only left with the tier 22 set, which is not so strong. So is it now, am I now in a position where if I got that I could drop that and actually use Whisper of the Nathrezim again? So I tried a sim for that. That's the go for it sim you can see there. It looks like a slight upgrade on where I am now, but not an upgrade on where I would be then. So in other words, no, I'd still want to keep the 2 set tier 20. Again, until I got enough other pieces that were high enough item level. Because what I'd have to replace this with, for example, my belt I would have to replace with a 940. So maybe when I got a 960 belt with decent stats, haste mastery ideally, then that might be a little bit different. But you can see here I need to make up over 1% to be able to use Whisper of the Nathrezim. And that's just to have it on parity. And then you'd think to yourself in terms of fights. Now, even when I get to the position where Whisper of the Nathrezim sims better than Chain of Thrain, I will still be considering the situation in a fight. If, for example, on a fight, I'm going to do my most important damage during wings, I would still probably want Chain of Thrain. Classic example of this, as I'm told by every Ret that's done it, is King Garoth on Mythic mode, because on Mythic mode you don't start off by firing your wings off. The ads are so important that you make sure you save your wings for the first set of ads, and then the intermission between each one is 2 minutes, so you can use wings on every set of ads, or at least the first 2, timed quite nicely like that. So that means you're going to be... We're actually really good for that. We're really good at bursting down those ads, apparently. Certainly looking at logs, you can see that. But that means saving wings for it. Anything that you're going to save wings for means it's going to be super important damage. Chain of Thrain, you know, just from that point of view, is going to look better, even if it doesn't do you any overall extra damage. So there's that consideration as well. But this is why really you sort of need to sim it for yourself, because there's no hard and fast answers. People will keep asking, so when do I, you know, switch from 4-set tier 20 to 4-set tier 21? It sort of depends on the pieces you've got. It depends on various things. Depends on which pieces of tier 20 as well. It might be, and tier 21, it might be with a random 4 bits of tier 21, you're simming, it's not really an upgrade, but, you know, better itemized pieces, maybe it is. It's just one of those things. But use raid bots. Raid bots does make it fairly simple. You get a much better deal on raid bots by being a patron of the author of it. You get faster queues and stuff like that. But it is free to use. In terms of doing the stuff that you need for this as well, it is absolutely free to use. It's just sometimes one of those things, better off using it off peak times, so the queues are not so bad on it. But definitely give that a try if you haven't already. But these are the sort of things you do need to think of during tiers. You know, you'll be up simming things for upgrades. Is it an upgrade? It's not really. You always have to do it. I always suggest doing it every month, because then after that you've got a certain amount more progress. That means you've got access to higher item levels equivalents than you did before, because there was no point in simming. I mean, you know, on the off chance maybe, but realistically, simming things that were 960 item level in the first week, because only Titan Forge could get you those. Whereas now that's the baseline of bosses you're killing if you're on mythic mode. And the same thing, you just shift everything back in terms of, like, maybe if you're progressing heroic, you didn't really have access to a lot of the heroic stuff in the first week. Well, now you do. So it's again re-simming. It's at the item level that you're likely to get. And it's always worth simming it. If it doesn't look like an upgrade, sim it for 10, 15 item levels above as well, just in case it Titan Forges, because then you can just bear in mind back of your head, oh, well, if it Titan Forges to this, it would then be an upgrade. So I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it useful. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later and have fun in Antorus.